Today we're going to talk about mid-ranges, specifically overstable mid-ranges, and why I think this is the most underrated mid-range that I have ever thrown. So to break down why I think this disc is so underrated and why I love it so much, I need to break down what kind of overstable mid-ranges I will typically bag, and I separate that into two types. Type 1 is genetic, type 2 you get from eating bad. Type 1 is a kind of dumpy, torque-resistant overstable mid-range. This is typically the Ursus for me in my bag. This is something that I can chop over on a forehand, rip over on a backhand, and I know it's going to fight out. It's going to skip to the left. It is very overstable. Doesn't go super far, but is more glidey than, say, an approach disc. And the other type of overstable midrange that I will typically bag is what I call like a pushy, glidey, overstable midrange. This is something that I, again, can throw hard flat on a backhand. I know is still going to drift left for me, but not nearly as dumpy as the Ursus, Justice, that type of midrange. Something that I can forehand, but may not have the most confidence in. I may lose it to the left on a forehand, and especially in the wind, these may not finish quite as much as something, again, like the Ursus or a Justice, that style disc. Which brings me to the Metal Flake Ultra and why I love this Ultra specifically so much. It is right in between those two discs, and it covers both those slots for me. So this is something I can throw flat, a little bit of hyzer forehand. It may push up, it may turn some if I rip it over, but this will always finish back for me, and I can have a ton of forehand confidence in this and its torque resistance, but it also doesn't dump quite as hard as the Ursus, that Justice style disc. I had taken the Ursus out of my bag and just started using the Fjord, my approach disc. It was doing something very similar for me, just with less glide. This disc does almost everything I need out of an overstable mid-range just in one disc, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to hit all these on some backhands, some turnover backhands, and some forehands, and show you why I think this is just the holy grail of the overstable mid-range. This thing is perfect. All right, we're going to start overstable, hit these all on a flat to hyzer backhand out wide, let them finish towards that gap in the wood line. Wood line's about 350 away, so I probably won't get there with any of these, hopefully. And there is an off and on slight headwind coming in. I'm not kidding. This is the fourth time I've tried to film this video, and there's just been too much wind the other times to really reliably show what the discs are doing. And I finally just kind of given up. I'm going to start out with the Fjord. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit different than the others, but again, I had taken the Ursus out for this because I was just using them for super similar shots. Just nice flat backhand, slight hyzer. Came out a little early, but again, you can see that's not going to be the closest comparison, but especially on a forehand, pretty similar. This will have more glide, similar stability. Glass Ursus. You can see still holds that hyzer, is going to skip for me even in this wind. Then maybe a little bit less stable on the Glow Ursus. Yeah, hit my release point a little bit better on that one. Still just nice, reliable hyzer. And then for the pushy, more glidey mids, I've thrown the Rise, the Raw, as well as the Seablend Chariot. This was in my bag the longest for this slot. Just something I can throw flat and will trust it'll still finish left for me, but mostly hold straight throughout the flight. Start out with the Chariot. Again, just trying to hit a nice flat to hyzer. You can see it pop up a little bit in that wind and drift, and that is why I carried both those slots before. In that wind, that's going to drift and finish straight and not really finish to the left for me. Maybe a little bit less wind right now for the Raw. Maybe a little bit of an early release. Still though, early on hyzer, you can see that holding straight, not dumping out. Not like the Ursus. We'll throw the Rise here. Similar, slight hyzer. Another early release, very similar flight. I need to get back on the tech disc apparently. And then the Ultra, you should see if I throw this well, will just be right in between those flights. Nice, slight hyzer flat. You can see that little bit of flip up, a little bit of drift into the headwind, but it's still gonna finish back always for me. And that is why, I mean, it's just right in between those slots, and I only have to bag one disc. All right, we're gonna hit some turnover backhands now. We'll start out again with the Fjord. This is gonna be very overstable into the Ursus, which is pretty overstable into the glidey pushy. In this wind, they'll probably just hold over, and then the Ultra right in between. Hopefully my predictions are right on that. Start out with the Fjord, just a nice turnover backhand. Didn't quite commit to that, but you know, that's about what I expected anyway. Interested to see, these really should in this wind still fight back and skip for me. These things are pretty mean. Really commit to that turnover. You can see glide over, but will always really kind of spike hyzer back. A little less stable with the glow, may drift a little bit more, but definitely will still finish for me. Another undercommitted one, but typical S-curve flight out of that. Now these, the pushy glidey guys, I think will probably just hold the anhyzer, especially in this wind. They may prove me wrong, but that's what I'm expecting. Yeah, you can see a bunch more right movement out of those. Still finish back, but not something that's going to spike or skip. Really, it's just going to finish more flat. Hit the rise next. Same, just turnover angle. There we go. Finally committed to one. And you can really see that just drift and pan over. Probably the same with this Chariot. Another early one, really showcasing the form work here. Similarly, even just on 60% power and undercommitted, did not finish back left that hard. And then again, the Ultra, gonna try to really commit to this, and it should just be right in between. Drift over to the right, and then just a nice pan back as the wind picks up as well. Did commit to it, so you can see, does pan over, but always will finish back. And we're going to see something very similar on why I really love that disc, which is the Forehand, after I go pick those up. And finally, the biggest reason the Ultra has taken over this slot in the bag, let's call it the Forehand confidence meter. So if we go from Fjord down to the more glidey mid-ranges, the Raw, the Rise, and the Chariot, I'm going to say extremely confident this is not going to flip over on me, even if I throw it like absolute garbage. The Ursus may drift more than I want if I roll my wrist, but it's going to come back. These guys are goners. They're just gonna burn into the ground. And the Ultra, just right in the middle of like, I may push this over a little too much, make it a little scary, may go OB. No, it's gonna come back every time. So we're gonna show that, especially in this wind, which is transferred into a left or right now, which we'll see how that affects the flights. But I'm gonna try to throw these on a forehand. Again, chop forehand with the Fjord is gonna be very overstable. Gonna try to hit like flat to slight hyzer forehands on the rest and just gauge. The Ursus probably will not go very far. I may lose these, especially if I throw them bad. And the Ultra is like my go-to money forehand disc right now. So hopefully I throw it well after all that. Gonna yank over on the Fjord a little bit, just nice chop over forehand, approach shot. So you can see the wobble out of that. I almost fell over, and it's going to finish back. It's going to skip. Mainly for those like forehand approach shots, that's where I was seeing the most overlap in the Ursus and the Fjord. I was just using those for very similar shots. Like this on a nice flat to slight hyzer release is going to look very similar. You can see if I put that on hyzer, especially the wind's going to push it over, but it is not going to think about doing anything but hyzer. Something very similar here with the glass. Throw this a little flatter. You can see the wind is obviously accentuating that. That thing is going crazy, but we're going to see some very different flights from these guys. So I'll start out with the Chariot. Where you can see that is just extremely straight. Kind of more of a neutral mid. The wind's helping it push back over. That was one of my best forehand releases. That was kind of sick, but gonna throw the Rise here now. Nice hyzer. You can just see it flip up inside that the whole way, and then the wind is gonna push it over. And then this is what I struggled the most with the Raw. I really wanted to be able to forehand this more, but I just could not trust it. Gonna try to rip it on that same line. And there you can see pure hyzer, much more glidey. The wind's gonna push it over to the right and get a skip there. But then this guy is gonna be right in between. So this is gonna flip up and hold straight some and then get that finish. See, slight flip up, wind's gonna take it over. Didn't quite catch that one, but right in between those two flights. So I hope that helps illustrate why I love the Metal Flake Ultra so much. It really gives me two slots in one disc, where I have an overstable forehandable mid that I know I can rip as hard as I want and it still will finish, but it's also pushy, it's glidey, it's something I can hit a gap with, I can trust it to hold straight through a line and then consistently finish for me. And then it really doesn't overlap with, say, my approach disc, where this is gonna have a very distinctly different flight than than this, where I wasn't really seeing that with the Ursus before in my bag. So I did look at Infinite yesterday when I tried to film this for the 3rd time and got owned by the wind. There are 19 of these left. This is specifically the Metal Flake Ultra. This is the only Ultra that I have ever thrown, and I am just in love with it. But there's 19 left. If they sell out broad, I'll take a cut of that. But please use the link in my description if you are interested. Go buy one of those. Check out the other links there. You never know what you're going to find that might help me support these videos and my channel, etc. If you want to support my channel in the easiest way, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that bullshit. And I'll see you guys in the next one.